Yeah, boy.
Welcome to the channel, everyone, and today we're taking a look at a truly special weapon type in Outward Definitive Edition. I will finally be talking about the best knuckles, gauntlets, fists, or heck, you could just call them gloves if you really wanted to. The gauntlet weapon type was added into Outward with the introduction of the Soroborian's DLC. Its main skill, called Prismatic Flurry, quickly became a fan favorite, and for good reason. In one single punch, you attack 5 times, dealing high levels of damage. Stack this high enough, and you can potentially one-shot a lot of enemies. But while this sounds so enticing, these knuckles are pretty difficult to master. You need loads of stamina to dodge often, and not using the combo attacks will force you to take a hit constantly. But once you understand how these work, you can rush into battle and exit in just a few seconds, leaving your opponents dumbfounded like the true boxer you were always meant to be. There are many good knuckles out there, but here are the top 5 gauntlets in Outward Definitive Edition. At number 5, we have the Vampiric Knuckles. These are on this list for several reasons, but first take a closer look at them. You're sticking your hands into 2 hearts attached with razor-sharp bone-like material. Vampiric weapons are pretty disturbing in design, but the gauntlets take it to another level. Maybe don't look too closely at your weapon when using it, that's all I'm saying. To get these, you need to enchant Iron Knuckles with Thirst, then kill loads of enemies, quenching the item's desire for blood. Activate them at a blood altar, and you have a gruesome weapon that leeches health from enemies. My main issue with vampiric weapons is that the health leech is relatively low. This is to keep them balanced and not grant you complete invincibility. But what's nice about the gauntlets here is that they attack rapidly. Essentially, one swing will grant you 2 hits. First from one hand and second from the other. You also get twice as much out of this if you deal enough damage. The faster attacks of the gauntlets let you move in and out of battle fluidly. If you happen to get hit while mistiming a dodge, these will have healed you up in no time. You may notice in the footage here that sometimes I take a large amount of damage, and at the end of a fight, it doesn't really look too bad. And I'm not even wearing anything to boost my damage. This weapon type actually leeches more health the more physical damage you do. So stack that as high as you can get it, and getting hit means very little to you in the end. The Vampiric Knuckles are fast enough to be good in battle, and the health leech they offer is incredible. Sadly, getting the vampiric weapons is a bit of a grind, so I couldn't put it higher on the list, but still an excellent option for any gauntlet build. At number 4, we have the Tsar Knuckles. These are one of my personal favorites, as they might be the best Tsar weapon. They have a very cool appearance with loads of spikes and massive gloves attached to them. You grab them in a secret room just before the Rustlich fight, which ups their wow factor a bit. They just look so darn beautiful, and I love it. As for the stats, these things have it all. 26 impact, but that's per hand, meaning you get over 50 impact in one main attack. 54 damage also shreds through enemies, and with the varnish on top, nothing can stand up to you. Of course, it is made of Zarstone, so it's completely impervious to breaking. Infinite durability is really nice in Outward, and you start to realize that the more you mess around with attack skills. The one downside with these Tsar Knuckles is their speed. They're the slowest gauntlets with 0.8 attack speed. This means messing up is a bit easier, and if you don't knock your enemy to the ground immediately, you're guaranteed to take damage. Newer players or even someone not very good with gauntlets should avoid using these. They will feel awful if you don't understand what I'm about to tell you. The reason why I personally love them is because I love impact. In fact, gauntlets seem like speed is their main feature, but impact might just be even better on them. Because this weapon is all about fast attacks, you want to use push kick, sweep kick, and mana push to give yourself an edge. These 3 all reduce enemy impact by a lot, and sometimes by half. React fast enough, and one hit from your gauntlets will completely stop enemy movement. Now, any gauntlet can do this, but most have much less impact, making it a bit easier for your enemy to gain stability again. These Tsar gauntlets never let that happen. The insane amount of force you hit things with makes up for their speed if you play into this impact thing. Place your opponents onto the ground constantly, and then punch them while they slowly stand back up. It's a glorious form of combat that never gets old. But again, this only works if you know how to use gauntlets and impact pretty well. And even then, it's really easy to miss time and attack on larger enemies that have more stability. So while they are immensely strong and beautiful, they're only the 4th best fist weapon in Outward. At number 3, we have the Porcelain Fists. Dropped from the giant turned scourge monster in the Antique Plateau, these are incredibly powerful. A bit of an odd-looking weapon, I have to admit, but insane attack speed. In fact, they're only beat out in speed by the Astral Knuckles. Considering Knuckles already have fast combat, you might see how this would be beneficial. Their best feature is that you can get into a fight and deal damage in between enemy attacks with ease. No worrying about impact because their speed is enough to avoid taking damage. It's hard to explain how good these are, but once you throw them on, they just feel amazing. Not nearly as much damage or impact as these are gauntlets, but still really good. Then we get to the 2 effects that they inflict. The Porcelain Fists inflict sapped and weaken at a rate of around 20%. So within just 3 or 4 attacks, you weaken the enemy massively. They instantly deal 40% less physical and elemental damage. This is honestly ridiculous. It sounds just okay, as you still take some damage, but 40% is quite a lot. These allow you to stress a little bit less, as mistakes don't quite hurt as much. Even in Dancer armor that has basically no defense, I still noticed my damage received was much less. Now, I've hated on Sapped and Weaken in the past. I really don't think they're that good. Mostly because when you can inflict them, it's usually only one at a time. Inflicting only Weaken still makes you deathly weak to elemental attacks and vice versa. I would rather focus on dealing higher damage and defeating my opponent faster. While I still feel this way, the Porcelain Fists are an exception, because they inflict both status effects. This massively hinders your enemy's ability to kill you. And these things are so fast you'll instantly apply the statuses against most monsters. Additionally, the Porcelain Fists have 500 durability, which means they don't break anytime soon. You can't get them immediately, although you just need some lightning damage and the Corruption Beast isn't so bad. Top-notch gauntlets that my man Comforts of the Burrow embarrassed the game with. Before Definitive Edition came out, I think he beat all of Outward in hardcore with these. It was incredible to watch, and if you want to see the full power of these, I highly recommend checking out that video series. I will link it in the description if you're interested. At number 2, we have Tokebakicit, a strangely named weapon that I guarantee you I'm mispronouncing. But that isn't really new, now is it? These are honestly a bit OP. They come with several stats and probably the coolest look for gauntlets. No pun intended. With 2 large shards of blue material slowly spewing frosty smoke, they give off a really cool appearance for any character. Unfortunately, this smoke makes the player cold. Around -14 degrees cold, in fact. This is fantastic in areas such as the desert or caldera, but not so much during winter. Then again, it doesn't matter much because you can unequip them to remove the effect, so whoop-de-doo. These deal 25 physical and frost damage. Having 2 types of damage is nice when dealing with high enemy variety, and that cold is not resisted by most things in the game. These also inflict slowdown and chill at different rates, but it will only take a few hits to apply either. Chill is what makes these a bit OP as it weakens the enemy to cold by 25%. Not only are you dealing high damage with Tokebakicit, but they buff themselves, which is really strong. Slowdown also decreases enemy speed by 25%, which isn't crazy or anything, but does make dodging attacks way easier. These gauntlets don't really need much explanation. I mean, you could see the gameplay here. I shredded a gargoyle without an ethereal varnish. Not that easy to do. Sadly, all things do come at a cost, and Tokebakicit weakens you to fire damage by 20%, which is funny because you demolish fire enemies. This really only comes into play when facing that one element type, and you can easily look past it due to the damage. In fact, with minimal buffs, this is one of the fastest weapons I defeated the Gold Lich with. That really surprised me. These do take much longer to get than others as you have to craft the unusual knuckles with chromium shards and bloodroot, which is not easily accessible until you begin building new Sirocco. I recommend ignoring them until you can legacy them for a new character. It will alleviate some of the hassle that way. Tokebakicit is one of the strongest weapons in Outward. They're decently fast and make Caldera feel like nothing. Make sure to at least try them out if you create a gauntlet build. At number 1, the best gauntlets in Outward are Iron Knuckles? What? Who even put this in my script? Oh yeah, that's right. Iron Knuckles have a super unique feature. You see, Iron Knuckles can be enchanted with Unsuspected Strength, a relatively easy enchantment to make that grants your weapon infinite durability and plus 150% physical damage. Which is obviously a ton of extra damage, and your weapon never breaking is already great, like I mentioned with the SAR Gauntlets. Still, this can't be enough to make Iron Knuckles the best in the game, right? Well, try legacy chesting these after the enchantment has been placed on them. Oddly enough, they will turn into the golden Iron Knuckles, but keep the enchantment. So in truth, the golden Iron Knuckles are the best gauntlets in Outward. Not only is this a neat detail to find out, but they have great stats as well. I'll pull up the original stats from the wiki, as well as my in-game stats with the enchantment legacied. Notice how much of an upgrade you get when doing this. It's completely game-changing. But hold on for a moment. How much damage did those Zar Fists do again? Let's see. Yes, 54 physical damage versus 58 physical damage. The Golden Knuckles actually beat Zar? These are kind of absurd now that I think about it. Now, you can enchant Zar Knuckles as well, which would technically make them better in the end. But remember, attack speed is almost the most important thing when looking at gauntlets. The Zar only has a 0.8 attack speed, which is the slowest, while these have 1. They're much faster and deal essentially the same damage. Now, the impact is a different story. 18 and 26 don't look that different, but they're not the same at all. This is why I love Zar so much, because that impact puts things on the ground without any effort. However, remember when I said Mana Push and Push Kick are great with gauntlets? Well, using those, we make up for the missing impact. Mana Push in particular is the best skill with this style as it destroys impact. Use the Golden Iron Knuckles and game over. Buff the weapon with whatever varnish is best and you're placing opponents in a really unfair situation. These things are of course cool as you just have spiked brass knuckles, but the power behind them is impossible to ignore. Get yourself the Golden Iron Knuckles through some enchanting shenanigans, and you'll never look back. So there you have it, guys, the top 5 fists or gauntlets in Outward Definitive Edition. All 5 of these are really unique, but also insanely strong. You go into battle with fast-paced combat and quickly deal damage with pure brute force. I highly recommend this weapon type as they are one of the most fun items to use in Outward. Prismatic Flurry is all the incentive you really need. It's a lot of fun to use. Do remember that gauntlets have one additional mechanic. They're the only weapon type that does not fully block damage. When blocking, you only avoid 90% of damage. This is why rolling or dodging is a bit better, but don't let it discourage you from blocking. It's still very effective. Oh, and before I go, please use the running attack on these. It's great for avoiding damage. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and feel free to let me know what your favorite gauntlet is down below. I'd love to see how many golden knuckle enthusiasts we have out there. Catch you next time, guys.